here with animallovelanguages.com, animal sensitive and intuitive, and Reiki master practitioner for pets and their people. And most importantly, for our purposes here today, your friendly neighborhood hostess of the Let's Talk to Animals podcast, which is truly a podcast that all species can enjoy together. So, what I want to address today is when should we turn to animal communication to get our questions answered, to build our relationship, to share, versus perhaps doing all of the other things that are available to us as modern pet parents, because we are most definitely living in the age of too many choices and too much information. And I see this a lot in my practice where the pet parent comes to me because literally they have tried everything else. And finally, somebody somewhere says, "Hey, have you tried animal communication?" And it's like, well, what's that? Or why would you suggest that to me? Or, well, why would you think that would work? And then that other person shares their story. And then that pet parent is like, okay, well, I'll try that before I give up completely. So many times I will have a client come to me and they'll have their whole list of everything else they've done. Well, I've run medical tests. I've gone to the chiropractor. I've gone and have my pet has had acupuncture, cold laser. Or they have gone to the trainer or the behaviorist or the holistic health coach, whatever it is, fill in the blanks, all the different things that we have available to us. None of that other stuff has really delivered the result that we were looking for. And so here we are. What can you do for us? Can you help us? And that's the point where we get to actually sit down and have a conversation with that animal and gather some firsthand information to help that frustrated, fed up, frightened pet parent start to try to unravel this whole mess. We're almost backseat driving ourselves, like looking back and going, well, that didn't work, and that didn't work, and that didn't work, and I won't do that again. Rather than looking forward and going, well, where should I start? What would make the most sense? What would feel the best to me? What would help me the most to navigate this unexpected challenge or this problem that we're facing together? Often it's such a relief and very much a confirmation. So often I'll hear, I knew my animal was going to say that, or, oh, I knew it. It's just nobody other than me was giving me any confirmation of it. And that's where we really start to recognize the power of our relationship with our animal is a huge driver for our own intuitive guidance. And I teach a lot more about that in my intuitive animal communication adventure. It's why all of my students are required to bring an animal, if at all possible. They either bring a pet who is with them or a pet in spirit to practice with, because there is power in that bond of love, in that connection that we have with each other that can amplify our intuition, that can take our interspecies communication channel and widen it and open it up and expand it that much further and give us some real integrity for holding these conversations that sometimes are literally a matter of life and death. And I say that because it's not uncommon to have a pet parent client come to me because they want to know if their animal is ready to go. They want to know if their animal wants an invasive surgery. They want to know how much their animal is hurting or suffering or what their quality of life truly is. And they want to hear it from their animal directly. They don't want to make any assumptions because that bond of love is so strong. It's really kind of the only thing that will take us out of that mode of thinking that we know best on another being's behalf. When we love that much, we think, no, I'm going to set that aside, what I think I know. And I'm going to ask, and I'm going to humble myself, and I'm going to open my listening ears, and I am going to invite my love, that animal in my life, to speak directly and share with me what's really going on from their perspective. Where I'm going to start us today, if that wasn't long-winded enough, where I'm going to start us today in terms of looking at why you might want to move animal communication to the top of your list. When you have any goal related to your connection, your bond, or your relationship with your pet, whether that's simply to get to know one another better, whether it's to tackle a specific problem, answer a specific question, navigate a specific upcoming change, or even choose on their behalf what they need or want for their end of life transition, why should we move animal communication further up that list? Why should we do this first and then proceed through all of the other options that are available to us today? And why it makes not just good intuitive sense, not just good emotional sense, not just good relational sense, but even good financial sense to consider working through animal communication first and then charting your course forward as a team from there. The analogy might be similar if you have a child or a spouse who's going through something. You would want to go to them directly. First, you would want to, if at all possible, have some kind of dialogue or conversation and receive their input because this is their life. And you just happen to be in a position to assist, to support, to help, to even take charge if that's what they need you to do. But you don't want to circumvent or downplay or ignore their wishes, their wants, and their needs as you do this. And so that's where we're kind of going to start today. The first reason you might consider using animal communication earlier in your journey or even at all in your journey would be simply to learn. We have so much information available to us. We have so much information available to us that it is easy to forget that we don't know everything, or even that we don't know anything when it comes to how another being is experiencing their own life. It's hard enough to even get to know ourselves and to really hear ourselves and really know our own heart, our own mind, our own spirit, let alone attempt to do that on behalf of another. But with so much information flooding us, telling us, here's what to do, telling us we should know because we've got all this information. And so what's wrong with you that you don't know, that you don't have the answer? It's like, well, maybe you haven't stopped to ask the right question yet. And you don't have to know anything. What you need to do is become teachable and start to ask. And that requires stepping back even one step further and saying, what am I really trying to achieve here? Because if we don't know what we're trying to accomplish, it's awfully hard to even come up with good questions that could possibly get us the information we need to get there. So the very first reason that you might want to consider turning to animal communication first is because you want to learn and because you want to experience the humility and the respect of listening to your animal rather than telling. And if you've been, I don't even want to use the word guilty of this, if you found yourself in this position, I certainly have, oh, so many, many, many times. So please know I'm right there in that boat, rowing madly with you. If you've ever found yourself in this position, don't worry about it. The important part is that because you've had that experience, now you can sense, you can feel the difference when you have this kind of experience. You know the difference. The pairs of opposites are at play all around us all the time in our world. Right, wrong, light, dark, big, little, tall, short. They're all around us. And we play with those a lot in my intuitive animal communication courses and workshops as well, because they're really useful sensory tools. So you've had that experience of kind of taking charge before you felt ready or fully informed on your pet's behalf. So now let's try on this other experience for size of sitting humbly and really thinking about, what is my goal here? Maybe your goal is just to achieve more enrichment for your pet. They seem bored, or maybe that you just don't know what they like yet. So you want to try lots of different things and find out. And that just requires humility and profound respect and listening ears and curiosity and wondering and noticing. And that is going to inform the questions that you ask your animals so that you can learn. What do you like? What do you not like? What are you interested in? What do you want? What do you not want? What would you like more or less of? Or what should we try next? Or here are some options. What feels good to you. And just getting a sense of who your animal is as a being, really exploring what is my animal's personality. This can be especially beneficial when you and your animal are still new to one another. There can be periods of time in your journey with your pet when you feel like real strangers to each other, or maybe you feel like you don't even like each other very much, or maybe you actively resent or get irritated by one another, or maybe there are problems that come up that really need to be gently untangled and worked through. And so if you're in one of those uncomfortable periods, or you're just brand new to each other and you're kind of sitting there in the house going, I don't know who you are, I don't feel comfortable and at home yet. Maybe you're transitioning from one animal who you've loved and loved and loved for a long time, and they've transitioned across the rainbow bridge, and now you're getting to know a new animal, and maybe you just want to kind of bridge that gap. And so animal communication is just an awesome way to get to know your animal, to learn who are they, what kind of personality, what kind of temperament, and not from a top-down perspective, not from a, oh, I know, I've observed this, and therefore, and connecting those dots in our own left brain, rational, logical minds without ever once being able to inquire of the other being, is this true? Did I even get it right? Am I even connecting the right dots? Because sometimes what we find out is we've made a lot of assumptions. And one of my mentors, Don Miguel Ruiz, says, don't make assumptions as one of his 4 big agreements in life. This is a very, very powerful life path to take on. It's also very humbling and very daunting, because assumptions are there to be made in every way, every day, everywhere. And so when we challenge ourselves to say, you know what, I am not going to make any assumption, I'm going to ask, you just elevate yourself to a whole different level of higher vibration, humility, and respect that you begin to feel for those living their lives around you. And so that would be the first place where I would start. If you've got an animal who is new to you and you're new to them, if you've got a situation unfolding and you don't want to just fire off the way you have in the past and just go do the things that you've always done because they haven't really worked out 100%. Maybe there are elements of positivity or benefit there, but you just want to stop. Let me try on a new way for size and see if this gets us there faster with less angst or even discomfort, and feeling even closer on the other side of it. And so that's the next reason I want to invite you to perhaps move animal communication a little bit higher up your list of things to do or to try or to consider when all is not 100% well between you and your pet, is because you do want to feel closer. And the fastest and the best way to feel closer is to practice this humble, teachable spirit of shared equality. There are fundamental differences that must be acknowledged and respected, but in so many ways in the work I do as an animal intuitive, I need and as well as want to just forget about species. It doesn't matter. When I first started learning animal communication, there were certain species families that I really was pretty familiar with in terms, and when I say familiar, I mean left brain hemisphere familiar. I knew stuff. I had facts tucked away. I had life experience caring for these animal species, turtles, tortoises, birds, dogs, had it in my back pocket, felt pretty confident. Cats, horses, goats, certain other reptile species, definitely not. Knew nothing. And so when I would have somebody come to me who had one of these animal species, one of these companion animals that I wasn't as familiar with or not at all familiar with, I would kind of panic a little bit, say to myself, I need to go read about cow anatomy or horse behavior or something. And it took me a while, which is why I think it's really important to take some time, if you're really interested in animal communication, to take some time to actually study and practice, because after a time, what I discovered is that it actually doesn't really matter what species they are. I don't need to know what that part of the horse's leg is called in order to convey to their person the information I'm receiving about that body part. I don't need to know the anatomy. I don't need to know the behavioral characteristics in order to convey what I'm receiving on an intuitive level about that animal's experience of their daily life or their routine. I don't need that head knowledge stuff. In fact, sometimes it can really get in the way. Just because you've had 4 dogs before you got the dog that you have now, and you know a lot about dogs, that isn't necessarily going to do you any good or really to serve you in any practical way when building a relationship with this dog that you have now, or cat, or horse, or bird, or turtle, or any animal species. We have to begin with who they are and what they want and how they feel and how they perceive their life and how they receive the connection with you, the opportunity to connect with you and to share their life with you. It's really kind of about forgetting that I'm a human and you're a canine or a feline or an avian or a reptile, and just connecting heart to heart and gut to gut and sensory system to sensory system and being to being. It's the best way to level the playing field is to put yourself into a situation with something like animal communication where you don't know the lay of the land. You don't necessarily know how it works and you don't necessarily know what to expect. And to be open and teachable and curious and eager to learn. It's one of the very best ways to feel that equality on the inside where we cannot see the exterior differences. We can just feel heart to heart and spirit to spirit. And you come out of that on the other side after a half hour or an hour, and your bond is unbelievable. I mean, I've seen pet parents come out, even my half-hour audio recording sessions, they've come back to me and said, I felt all of this, but I couldn't allow myself to believe it. Because those are 2 different communication pathways. The feeling is the direct in the moment experience, and the belief is up in the left brain, the rational, logical, connecting dots together without necessarily stopping to ask, are these even the right dots? I love the definition of belief that I heard, and I can't remember where, I think it was from a book that said, a belief is just a thought you've forgotten to think. I think it was Adyashanti who said that, but don't quote me on that. Versus a felt sensation, that's happening now. We're not factoring in the past or a thought that we've thought enough that it's kind of codified itself into our internal left brain lexicon. It's like, okay, every time I search on that word, this belief comes up. We're having an experience, and experiences are awfully hard to talk ourselves out of, especially when you have a set of believing eyes. As another one of my mentors, Sonia Choquette, likes to say, you have the animal communicator there with you going, yeah, I got that too. I felt that too. And so now you've got corroboration from the inside out rather than the outside in. If that makes sense. So that can be pretty cool. Just the interactions that I have with some of my human clients who have now become friends, and get to compare notes about their beautiful animal loves over time. And it's just, oh my goodness, it's an amazing shift in the way we live our lives when we open up on these deeper levels, not only to our animals, but to each other as well. Now, the third big reason that, and this is probably the most relevant, it's not where I started because this is really, we're moving into kind of more of an interventionist approach when we get to the point where there's like a big problem that needs to be solved or a big pressing question that needs to be asked. We've kind of moved past just this learning and feeling closer, but this is often where pet parents first encounter the animal communicator, is when there's kind of a big burning question to be asked, or maybe a problem that needs to be solved. And so this is another great time to move animal communication further up the list. Instead of doing everything else first, why don't we start here? Especially, I've had a number of clients lately who have only animals, if you will, single animals, like only one dog or only one cat or only one bird. And they want to know, does their animal love want another animal friend or sibling or family member? And so that's a pretty big ask. That's a big question. And many, many, many of us, and again, I have totally done this myself more than once. We don't even ask, we just add. We fall in love with another animal, and without even thinking, without even stopping for a moment to check in with our existing family members of all species, we go ahead and add that new animal to the family. And sometimes it works out great. And sometimes not so much. I've had that experience. My soul bird Pearl, who passed last January, he was really unhappy when I added both of my reptiles to the family. I hadn't even thought to ask him. I was working with an animal communicator, but I had no idea I could talk to animals. And I was really very much mired in that interventionist, like I'm only going to use the animal communicator if somebody's lost or somebody's dying kind of thing. And so that's probably one of the reasons I'm such a big advocate now for let's start with animal communication rather than ending with it. There are so many benefits. You get better information, you get better communication, better connection. When has any problem or situation been made worse by adding better information, better communication, and better connection and deeper trust between the two beings that are trying to sort it all out? In the last couple of weeks, I talked to one animal who definitely did not want another animal sibling, and one animal who was really neutral about it and said, if it makes my mom happy, I'm okay with it. I'll roll with it, but it's not necessary. And so that's what makes this really interesting. And for me, as the communicator, I see and have seen over time how differently animals will answer this same question. There's a pattern. And I've also seen how their humans are like, I kind of sensed, I kind of felt like that is what they would say. It feels really good to have it confirmed. And so that's that deep inner confirmation that we're looking for from ourselves because we don't find it around us. We need that inner confirmation in order to start really trusting ourselves, trusting our own inner GPS, our own inner guidance system. And so that's really where I decided to start an animal communication practice circle because we need these experiences. We need to build up a library of experiences where we have felt something intuitively, had that corroborated or confirmed or supported in some way by others of our own species, and then built up a library of similar experiences, positive experiences of trusting our intuition and having that pay off in positive ways over time. And the more of those experiences we can add to our library, the more willing we become to downshift into the humble, teachable, learning, open to new information. Let's tackle this issue a different way and see if our ride, our journey to get to the solution isn't a lot gentler. Asking questions is an amazing reason to move animal communication up to the top of the list. Here's a really common scenario that I see a lot with my pet parent clients. They're going on a trip, or they've got a move coming up to a different home, a different location, or a different city even, or they've got a change coming up. Maybe somebody's leaving for college, or maybe there's a pending divorce, or maybe there's an animal that's ready to transition. And they've made all kinds of assumptions about how their other animal in their family is feeling about it, or is going to respond, or they've just moved right to the worst case scenario. Like, I just know that my dog's not going to be okay with this, or I just know that this is really going to freak my cat out when we move to a different city. And just kind of going there to the worst case scenario, that is our fight, flight, freeze, tender, befriend system trying to keep us alive and trying to keep the ones we love alive. It's probably not something that we're ever going to be able to completely switch off. There is a reason for that. The survival system, and I've talked about this in other podcast episodes, but the survival system is always going to default to what's the worst that can happen because that's the best way to keep us alive. If we project the worst case outcome, then we probably won't experience that because we'll take steps to make sure it doesn't happen. But when we shift into this higher vibration frequency, when we shift out of this kind of 3D where the left brain mind is kind of running the show and driving the bus, and then we elevate our vibration and we dig deeper and we go within and we really start tuning into our sensory system, our intuitive system, what does our gut feel and sense to be true or to be possible. then we can shift out of what is the worst that can happen and into what is the best that can happen. And that's where you see animal communication move to the top of the list. Let me ask my animal, how do they feel about this upcoming move or this transition happening in the family? What do they need to move through it with the greatest grace and ease? How might they want to support the rest of the family as well? Not always looking at our animals like this helpless victim, like we're going to move because we need to move because our job moved or our family moved or there's something else, or this is just advantageous for other reasons. And they're just this helpless victim that absolutely doesn't want this and has no say in the matter. It's like, maybe they're welcoming a change too, or maybe they have something they want to contribute to support the family. Maybe they're excited about it, or maybe they just don't know. They don't quite understand what's going on, but they've sense the shift in the emotion and the relationships in the family. Everybody's a little tense, everybody's a little anxious, routines are changing, different plans are being made, and they just need to understand and kind of get grounded, like get the lay of the land. What's going on, guys? And so this is another great reason. Let's start with animal communication. Let's explain everything up front. Let's talk it out up front. Even if it's not optional, there are still so many things that can be said and done to make it a smoother transition for everyone, rather than having to, we get to the other side of whatever the move or the loss or the change or whatever it is, and then we're managing symptoms again. And then we're coming to the animal communicator because someone's freaking out or there's a health issue or there's a behavior issue. And then we're on the other side and the trauma's already happened. The damage has kind of already been done. And now we're kind of trying to mitigate it. We're trying to put the Band-Aid on and ease the discomfort, and versus we could have started at the beginning. We could have actually prevented most or all of it. So that's kind of where I'm so excited every time I have a human pet parent client come to me, because they're taking a look at what's coming down the line and they're like, let's see what we can do to ease this transition for everyone in our family. I want to talk with my animal about it. It's like, oh, thank goodness. Yay. Because I know I'm not going to get it on the other side necessarily. I mean, there may still be a little fallout or some issues, but it's going to be a gentler journey, almost guaranteed. Now, the fourth reason that it might make sense to move animal communication to the top of your to-do list when you're kind of navigating an issue or a question or transition or any of those bumps in the road that can, or opportunities that crop up as we're moving through our shared journey in life together, is to get information. You want to learn. Again, we're putting ourselves in that humble, that teachable, got big open ears and a quiet closed mouth, and a calm, attentive left brain and an open, aware right brain. We don't get a manual when we pop out of the womb. Nobody hands us this manual, like a car manual, to our human body and says, okay, here are all the pieces. Here's a little key showing you where they all are. And here's a little bit of information telling you what each one does. What are they responsible for? What is their job description? What hat do they wear? We don't get that. And so for me, one of the biggest benefits of learning animal communication is that it has taught me about my own human organism. I'm like, oh, that's what the right brain's for. Oh, that's what the left brain's job is. Or, oh, that's what my survival system is there to do. Oh, that's how I can tell when I'm operating from this system versus that system. Because there's so much more to us than what we're taught in school and even trained for in work. For most of us, we can go through our whole lives never even knowing all of the great, cool stuff, all the gadgets and the apps that are packed into our operating system. And what a waste. I cannot believe it took me 4 decades to figure out that some of this cool stuff was in there. I'm just really eager to share it with you, because you may not know either, or you may just sense it, but you just don't. Life is so fast and it's so overwhelming and it's so loud that most of us, even if we have this vague sensation that there might be more there, it's really awfully hard to slow down and stop long enough to look and to sense and to feel, and then to get that validation, that confirmation, that corroboration from others that, yeah, what I'm sensing and feeling versus what I'm thinking or knowing is real. And it's also a lot more interesting, and it makes me feel a lot more alive. Animal communication as a discipline, as a daily practice, it's actually something that we do already Because if we didn't, we really technically wouldn't be alive. Like we can't really turn that off either. But because we don't know it's happening and because we don't know how to actively tune into it and actually use it, it actually can start to feel like a liability. Like it holds us back. It's like, oh, what is this vague gut feeling that I keep feeling? And it's like we get frustrated at ourselves and we're like, I wish I could just get on board with the plan. And it's like there's this other part of us that's trying to talk to us, it's trying to guide us, it's trying to keep us out of trouble and trying to give us a whole different, more calm, peaceful, and joyful experience and a journey through life. And instead of welcoming it and using the information it's bringing us, we spend our energy and our time fighting with it. It's like, in order to really become this 5D integrated human animal that we have always been designed and meant to be, it's so vitally important that we understand, oh, I'm getting a vibe, or I'm getting a hunch, or I'm getting an aha moment, or what, again, my intuitive teacher, Sonia Choquette, talks about green lights, yellow lights, and red lights, and feeling, which is it? What am I getting? What is this sensation I'm getting? Is it a green light go? Is it a red light stop? Is it a yellow light? I don't know. I call that it's always a no until it's a yes. That's my yellow light vibe. And so the more we can tune into these and notice that they come rather reliably when we start to kind of seek them out, we start giving a little bit of our attention, we start looking within and going, I wonder, what does this feel like? How does this land with me? Then we add it to our inner GPS system. We factor it in, we give it more weight, and it actually makes our life easier. So animal communication is a great place to start tuning in and tapping into these inner sensory pathways that we share with our companion animals. Our animals, our pets, they're our partner, our empath, and our teacher. They're here as guides, as collaborators, and as teachers, and empathic friends and partners in our lives. In fact, all of that came up because one day I got really curious. I know this story about how the word pet came to be. How did we start using the word pet? But I thought, let me throw that out, what the internet has to say about it. Let me ask the animals directly. What does the word pet mean to them? And the animals told me it means partner, empath, teacher. How amazing is that? And so when you invite animal communication experiences into your life, you are inviting your partner, your empathic friend, and your teacher to support you, to guide you, to educate and enlighten you, to enhance your awareness of what it means to be an embodied spirit here on this earth plane. And I don't know about you, but that pretty much sounds like the bucket list adventure to end all bucket list adventures. I want to end today's podcast episode with the fifth reason why you might want to elevate animal communication a little bit higher on your to-do list when you're navigating any kind of challenge or opportunity with your pet, and that's to share. All throughout this podcast episode and throughout all the work that I do, both in my individual sessions and also as an animal communication educator and interspecies communication teacher and mentor, guide, and cheerleader, is to kind of throw away those species goggles and just share from the heart as equals. And there's really no words to describe how this changes our connection with our beloved companion animals, with our pets, with our partners, empathic friends, and teachers. When we share heart to heart, sensory system to sensory system, when we really not just know, but feel and sense, perceive and experience that we're so much more alike than different, it profoundly and forever alters our connection with one another. It just takes it to a whole new level of equality, respect, and unconditional love. And so I'm going to leave you right here today There's a lot to think about, a lot to ponder, whether you have had experiences of animal communication before in your life with your animal loves, or this might be your first ever time. I would love to work with you. I'd love to get to know you and your animal better. If you're interested in studying animal communication with me, which is about 10% study and about 90% practice, the way I teach it. So it's really lively and fun, very interactive, and lots of really cool new friends of all species to meet and mingle with, then from my heart, I invite you to consider it. Just consider it. Just drop a pin into that pool and see how the ripple effect may draw you in closer, and how it might transform not just your relationship with your pet, but your relationship with your whole life and your relationship with yourself. If you put your intuition first, if you prioritize the inner you, that which illuminates us all. From my heart to yours, if you're enjoying Let's Talk to Animals, a podcast about interspecies communication, I am so delighted to have you with us. I know you've got lots of podcasts to choose from, and so happy that you've carved out a little bit of your time and attention and energy to share it with me and with the Animal Love Languages family. And if you have questions or requests about a future topic, please do email me at shannon@animallovelanguages.com. That will reach me directly, and I will do my utmost to be of service in any way that I can. Join me in 2 weeks for another fresh new episode of Let's Talk to Animals. Okay, all my love to you and your animal loves. Bye for now.